Okay, welcome to our webinar where we have the beautiful Kelly Patterson from OHS Compliance Solutions with us today. Hey, Kel.
Hi, how you going?
Good, good. We're very thrilled to have you on board. Like I said, we'll welcome anybody else who comes on as they do, but we'll make a start and ask you lots of questions about what you do. I'm really excited to have found Kelly because OHS has been a space that obviously working with a lot of different clients, everybody gets really confused by it. They feel like it's this big, huge, daunting task. They also feel that it's really hard to know if you're getting well looked after or not in this space. And there's so many people out there who are saying, oh, we'll help you with your OHS. And it's a really murky waters to tread for many of us in trades business. So as you all know, we do build alliance partnerships and we work pretty hard to find people who align with us at Ladies with Tradies. And I've been lucky enough, I stalked Cal really, to be honest. Over a little while, I saw that many people were recommending her in other spaces and thought, reckon this might be the chick for us. So we've welcomed Kelly into our little circle and we're super excited to have her on board. So welcome, Cal, and what I'll get you to do is I'll get you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, so obviously I'm Kelly. I've been working in OHS consulting for 11 years now. Before that I was actually in finance and then just kind of fell into it, and I started off doing auditing. So I worked for a big petrochem company, auditing their subcontractors who had to work on their sites. So basically ensuring that they were compliant to their that petrochem clients' requirements. So initially my background in that, it helps a lot for clients who are doing tenders or have working for builders that have specific requirements. So that's probably what's led me down into the trades path, I would say, because it really helps knowing how to read those requirements. And then I went into consulting when I had my son. So my eldest son is nearly 9, and I've been doing that with him since he was born. So I've been doing that as well as raising kids, and I have 3 kids now. So they're 9, almost 5, and almost 2. So, you know, like a lot of you ladies, yeah, like a lot of you guys, juggling all the things. And also my husband is a diesel mechanic, and at the moment though he's driving trucks. So a lot of similar, like I sort of understand the similar things. Safety's not a very well loved, maybe a very sexy topic. People don't really like it. I find that sometimes safety consultants also maybe aren't or can get the raw end of the stick as well if they... Like, we're sort of the middleman, I suppose. So I try to think of myself as a translator. So when people sort of, there's a gap between what you need to do and how easy it is to understand what you need to do. So I try to fill that space in between, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the thing that really struck me when I first sort of met up with Kelly to just, check in. Is she going to be the right fit and all that kind of thing? And straight away, you're one of us for a start. You're definitely able to sort of cut through with that stuff and help people navigate through the confusion. And that's, like you said, it is, it isn't the sexiest topic on earth, but if you can find somebody like yourself who is going to translate the information in a way that makes it less daunting, less frightening, that's really what we were looking for, and you've just absolutely delivered on that, so we're pretty grateful on that. So Cal, so you sort of started talking about the trade space, and obviously you're married to a tradie, and you've got this extensive background. It's interesting. The petrochem world would be highly litigated and pretty, really insane. So knowing that you're coming from that background that's so intense in this space as well just elevates your credibility again. So that's pretty awesome. So why did you step out of the employment space and then into your own business? What was it that you were hoping for in doing that?
I think that where I was really bound by the person I was working for, and she wanted to go down more of an automation path. I really like working with people. I like talking to people. A lot of what she did was more standard, and we do start with a standard option to keep our prices low. But I really like talking to each individual business, finding out what their needs are, and then taking that and then making it suitable for them specifically. So I just wasn't fulfilled there, I suppose, in terms of what I want to do to help people. It's really important to me that businesses understand that the risks of not having the safety stuff in place. And I mean, I know a lot of businesses do it for a tender or for a client request, and that's okay. But I think if that's why you're starting it, let's use that opportunity even to try and get that in place for your business as a whole. So however you start, that's fine, but let's not just tick that box and put it in a folder and leave it forever. And I think before that is a lot of what I had, and I wanted to try and move away from that as much as I could, where I can actually really make real change for people and help them understand things. And I think most people are being safe, but it's about documenting that as well and trying to make it simple. And yeah, it just gives me the freedom to do it my way.
Yeah, work around the babies as well as they've
Yeah.
grown up over the last 9 years.
Yeah.
And so you did mention in there, experience sort of tells me that a bit of what you've mentioned, where it's, we really want to get into this type of work. So, there's the mad scurry and perhaps a lot of us, because it feels so laborious, do the set and forget kind of a thing. And we know that that's not ideal, but at the same time, I get this impression certainly from you that it's not about it being an ongoing intensive process. It's yes, you put it in, and an element of it will be set up once you start, and then it's just the nurture from then on. So how does it sort of, what do we need to know, and why is it so important that we look at it that way?
Because there's two main things, I think, in regards to safety: covering yourself legally from if there's an incident and you might have done all the right things, you can get a big fine. In some states there's manslaughter charges. I mean, to go down on that, you'd have to probably be really not working safely and pushing negative things. But anyway, just to give you an idea that the repercussions can be quite serious. And I think the other side of it is that a lot of people, they sort of think it won't happen to them, and realistically it can just happen in a second where something happens. And so keeping on top of everything, I've probably drifted off what your question was, but keeping on top of everything means that at any given moment, if something does happen, you can just sort of know where everything is and you're not in that reactive state. So you've always been proactive, and you can go, well, here's our safe work method statement, here's where we signed off, here's our regular meetings, here's where, we've implemented these things. So you've sort of got an array of defense items, I suppose, to show the theme that you really do care about safety and you have put things into place. And I think too, approaching it from I see it like as preventative maintenance. So, if you buy a tool and you just leave it in the shed and then you want to go use it in 2 years, it's going to be rusty, or, it's not going to be oiled. Yeah, it's not going to do the job. So think of it like that, where, you've paid for this tool. If you use it if you say pick one thing every month to review and go over with everyone, by the end of a 2-year period when a review might be required, you've kind of already done the work. So, it might only be 10 or 20 minutes a week versus what seems like this big, huge task at the end of a 1 or 2 year period.
Yeah. So it's about, that's perfect. So it's about sort of chunking it down and making it more manageable.
Yeah, for sure.
Because, I mean, we know human behaviour, we talk about eating that frog, and the frog is usually the big chunky task that we don't want to do, that's sort of a little bit of a thorn in our side, that it becomes a frog, if you do sort of let it sit for too long. So I like that you sort of talk about that preventative maintenance, and that it becomes part of the status quo of your
It's just integrated into your
month business,
yeah.
Whatever it is, week by week.
Like I would even say to people, you guys are probably having a chat anyway, or you might be having a barbie with you guys, or a breakfast once a month, or whatever you guys are currently doing. So it's not about coming in and saying, okay, everything, you need to change the way you're doing everything. It's not like that. So it's more about saying, well, what are you currently doing, and how can we integrate this with what you're already doing? So, I don't see the sense in trying to change the way things are working. It's more about finding a way to mesh it in with what's already happening, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so that probably brings us nicely to the next question, which is around how this all works. So you've sort of started touching on that. It's not about you coming in necessarily and turning the whole thing upside down and going, oh, you're doing terrible at this and this and this. It's going, okay, well, let's understand what you already do quite well, and then integrating it that way. So tell us a little bit about how it works when you sort of start working with somebody.
So, I mean, in the first instance, we would just have a discussion about what work you guys are doing. Obviously, every single person, the way they work, who they work for, everything's going to be different, whether or not you use subbies, the types of work that's being undertaken, is it high risk or not? It's a huge, huge variety there. So we need to really find out what type of work's happening, whether we need to do swims or not. Even though swims in legislation is technically for specified high-risk tasks, there's kind of been a shift where lots of people want them for everything anyway. So we sort of, swims is a big thing in that we really want to talk to our client to see how we can set the swims up to fit with the way they work, because you might do a specific job the same way all the time, or you might do parts of a job it's hard to sort of just say, but yeah, like we would sort of work out the best structure for them, I suppose. We don't just sell them like it's this. We sort of look at your work as a whole, and then work out how we can get them structured so that it's the easiest for you to use and sign off. And how do you need to sign off on them every job, or what the process would be for you, basically. So, and then we would go over that with you so that you sort of know what would have to do once you get them. Obviously, policies and procedures is fairly standard across the board in terms of everyone's going to have an OHS policy or WHS depending on your state. Drug and alcohol, safe driving, most of you guys would have people driving, all different things like that. But then you might have staff who are working at heights, or you might have staff who are undertaking confined space entry, or whatever they're doing, electrical work. So then we would put into place specific procedures for that as well. So it's just really a matter of, what are you guys doing? How do you do it? How can we integrate what we've got? If you're already having meetings, so we give you a toolbox form, and then, how can you integrate that form into your current meetings? How can you save records of it? It's just what's going to work best for you, because people, if we can integrate it with what you're already doing, it's more inclined to be done. Whereas coming in and going, this is how it has to be done, never works. Because people, it's not going to work for everyone to do it the same way. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, again, that's what I loved about your process, Cal, similar to the way we sort of work with clients, and that's the great gel here, is that you've got to be engaged in the process. So the business owner, the tradie specifically, needs to be pretty engaged in the process and understand it, and it's got to almost align with and fit into the way that they work. Anyway, you'll rarely get a tradie kick back and say, oh, I'm not doing that. They know they've got to do these kinds of things. We know as business owners that there's a whole list of things that you've got to be across OH&S, your tax and BAS, all those things, but it's about how you integrate it into your day-to-day business or your operation.
So they sort of go, I don't want to sign 75 bits of paper and spend 3 hours having a meeting before I start working. That's not financially viable, and I'm just not going to do it.
I think that's what they think, Cal. Like I get this impression that people think, oh shit, if I go down that OHS path, that's what I'm walking into. Like if I start the process, that means I'm signing up for shitloads of paperwork, and I'm not I'm not interested in that. So I think that's some of the hesitation, isn't it, around
all or nothing.
Yeah, if I start that process, I'm going to get like a barrage of work to do. So it's not actually like that.
No, so I try to make it so we do use what is called in the industry as generic swims, and what that means is they're typed up before you go out to do the job. So what we try to do is we would have that, and then let's say it's an electrician, he has all of his, like, arrive at site, do all of your sign in if it's relevant, whatever's happening in that job. So that might already be typed up, and then we would have a section that just says any site-specific risks. So he's not having to write the same things over and over again. And then if you have a guy who maybe he only does 15-minute jobs every, like, 5 times a day or whatever, the same thing. So we might do a separate sign-off sheet for that guy. So he's not having to print and sign a swims like 50 times a day. Do you know what I mean? So we just have a sheet that he can sign off. So we would just talk to them to work out, whereas a guy who comes on to do like a 3-day, I don't know, like a big job that's going to spread over the course of days, that would be a really big swim. So you're going to really sign off on the swim, but you might sign off onto it every day, or it's always going to be different. But the point is to try and minimize, especially for tradies, they tend to not really like writing. So, and if you do get them, if they have to write something, I've seen they might just write, like, they'll write, oh, there's a risk of electrocution. So the risk there is death, but it's like what they're writing is like there's no risk. So you really, I think that they need to, if you've written it out for them, there's pros and cons, because sometimes if you've written it out for them, they don't even read it, but we can only do so much. But yeah, it's trying to make it as simple as possible to still keep that paper trail. And really it's about taking 5 minutes before you start working to really just stop and go, is this safe? Is this safe? Is there anything I need to do that could maybe stop me from getting hurt? And that's the ultimate goal. I mean, obviously we have the paperwork and all that stuff, but just stop for a sec, you know, and don't rush in and
Beautiful. And so if you've got questions, ladies, pop them in the chat box. If there's something more specific you want to know about, please feel free to do that. And so basically what I hear through that is initially people would have like a bit of a chat with you, Cal, around you know, what industry you're in, what kind of work that you're doing, you know, all that kind of thing. And out the back of that conversation, what tends to happen from there?
Yeah, so probably then what would happen is I would say to them, I'll go away and write up like a quote slash what I would recommend.
Like a proposal sort of thing?
Yeah, basically, yeah. So then I would outline, so I recommend this product, these swims, and here's the price. And so then once they've got that email, they could call me and we could have a discussion about it. Or generally I would say on the phone what I sort of recommend anyway. So they've probably got an idea of what I'm going to come back with anyway, and they might not want to have a chat about it, and they'll just come back and go, yep, okay, let's go ahead. So sometimes we do a 50% deposit. Sometimes we just invoice on completion. We're pretty flexible. It depends so your clients, I would just probably invoice on completion. Randoms off the internet, we tend to pay up front. So we're kind of flexible that way. We're not really stressed. But anyway, but it's just really about, so then we have like a little form, and they can fill out what procedures they want. Some people are happy to just tick that. Some people want more guidance. So either way, it's just really whatever that client wants to do. Is how we will.
I think, and that'll be an important thing. I think, you know, if I think about the general population of people who are following this page, it's we just sort of almost want to be told what to do. Like, just tell me what I need. For God's sake, look at all the nods. It's like, just tell me what I need. Tell me how much I owe you. Send it over. Help me help the tradie, and let's get on. Let's just get it done. So everybody's nodding on the screen. So
okay. Yeah. And so then sort of what you get. So we do all the work, and then we would send it over. And what we do is we send it over and we send it with an implementation guide. Some people read it, some people don't. It depends if you're really visual or not, I think, because I'm a visual learner, so I prefer to read a guide, but some people don't like that, which is fine. And then after a week, if we haven't heard from our client, we follow up and say, do you have any questions? At that time, you may not have had a chance to go over it. We don't have a time limit. So if you I don't really want to encourage just leaving it though. If you've gone and spent the money, use the tool, but really, like, let's say something happens and you can't get to it for a couple of weeks, that's fine. You can say, I haven't looked at it yet. Maybe you could say to us, ring me in another week. Yeah. And then that'll give you some kind of
well, I know the clients of mine that work with you, I'll be saying, have you had your appointment? If not, bloody pull your finger out.
Because the thing is, I will say this, it's like anything where at first when you get it, you probably open it and you go, holy crap, that's a lot of pages, it's too much, I'm overwhelmed, I'm just going to close that and deal with it later, which I can understand, because when you first look at it, you probably go, oh no, that's too much. But a lot of them are just company policies and procedures and don't really result in any extra work. So what I mean by that is, yes, if you employ someone, they need to read that. But on a day-to-day basis, you don't have to do anything with a lot of them. It's more about having them in place to say, this is our company's stance on this issue, which is going to be fairly standard. So for safe driving, for example, it's going to be, you don't use a mobile phone while you're driving the car, you wear your seatbelt, you follow the speed limit, you follow all the road, all that standard stuff. It's just having that written down. So you don't really have to do anything with that every day. And then you might set a schedule to review things, and that might be, so the month of March might be your driving month, and then you might have a toolbox meeting on safe driving. At the same time, you review that procedure, you check the forms, make sure everyone's got one in their vehicle, whatever, so, and then it's done. And
we often talk about this in coaching around having themes for the month for your whole business. So it might be communication might be the theme for 1 month, and perhaps in like mobile phone use might be a policy that's discussed in the context of communication at a toolbox meeting, or it might be safety, or it might be whatever, and you roll it around month by month and you pull the bits out of the OHS.
So if you've already got that set up, I would suggest trying to integrate that with match your themes, I guess. So that's kind of the process. Probably the bigger things to implement, or the more challenging, are the things that happen on site, because mostly I deal with the wives, and then of course they're saying to their husbands, okay, now you have to do this, and they're like, so they maybe they don't like it. But I think for men, I've found working with men, the biggest thing is to remind them that the cost. So if someone that's working on their site has an incident and then there's no swim signed off, what's the potential cost of that? You can get fined. So I think men relate more to money. They always think they're never going to get hurt. That doesn't really seem to be a good motivator, but money.
Right. These ladies on the call have heard me talk about that before. It's logic versus emotion. So if you can sell them the data or the dollar figure, or what's the risk or the return on investment or that kind of thing, they are much more responsive, which is great. So do you encourage the tradies to be part of the whole initial contact and conversations?
I would encourage it, but honestly, often it doesn't. It's not. Most of the time, it's just with the wives. If your husband's happy to be on board, definitely, because they're going to be the ones that are on site using that component of the paperwork.
And I would encourage too. I'd almost like make it a non-negotiable, that if I don't sort of allow the husbands to not come along for the initial conversations if somebody's going to be coached, and the reason for that is that they're the ones doing the work a lot of the time. So I think this is one of those things that's quite important, and whilst they might sort of go at least if they've been part of the process, that's a positive thing. So we've just got a question in the box here, Cal, from Beck, asking, how long do you have to keep the OH&S records, for example, toolbox meetings and swims?
Different things have different lengths of time. I'd have to check the legislation, but I'm pretty sure So things like HR records, and I think you've probably got HR's different, but like copies of training would be longer, and then toolbox. So swims only have to be kept till the end of the job unless there's an incident. So a lot of the legislation is, as long as there's no incident, you don't have to keep them forever. But then in saying that, if something ever came back down the track,
Yeah.
like, so I kind of think, for me personally, I would keep everything indefinitely, or at least 7 years, because the 7 years is the longest that I know of on one particular thing. I'm more of a scanner, scan things, and yeah, like tax records, just keep them, scan them. If you can use a job management system or job files where all the swims, all the toolbox meetings get put into that job, that's probably the best way, because then later, if anything comes back about that job, you've got it all with that job.
Yeah, and I think as far as from my perspective, where we come from with this sort of thing is it is about historical data on anything and everything. I mean, good on me, the old nurse background. You think, you know, if somebody all of a sudden ends up with a bloody pair of tweezers in their belly that's been operated on that gets discovered 10 years down the track, you want your documentation to be good.
That's what I think too.
Yeah, so I think and this is why job management software in today's day and age is so helpful, is that you can upload all this stuff and attach it to your jobs, and so you've got all your historical data there. So.
And I mean, if you're not using anything like that because of costs, like you could use something like ClickUp, which is free, and you could just create a job file for every job, and you can attach.
Because that might answer the next question I got on the page, one of my pages the other day, which was, does anybody have any apps that they use to store their OHS documents?
Yeah, so there's heaps of different things you can do. Free is always good. So for me, the best free software that I've found to do stuff with is ClickUp, because you can basically tailor it to however you want. You can use it to store OHS because you can put documents in it, or you could create a card for each procedure. I don't know. There's heaps of different softwares. It depends how much you want to spend to what you want to do. So I don't think there's really a generic answer to that.
No, and I didn't think so, because my usual default position is use Google Drive or use OneDrive, because they're storage functions, and you can use them on your phone as well. But it was just, I thought I'd bring that question in, because I know Ash, who asked the question, she might have liked to hear what your thoughts are, so I'll let her know that ClickUp's an option.
And I mean, from a really basic perspective, you could just have folders year by year, and then within that folder, the job name and the copies. It doesn't matter. That's the thing. There's no right or wrong. And I, like you, even though they say the swims doesn't have to be kept after a job, what happens if 10 years or 15 years later someone had asbestosis or something like that, and they track it to, oh, this job had asbestos and you disturbed it? Like, where's your records of where that was tested? Maybe you did get someone in to test it and they tested it negative. So then you can say, well, we did all the right things. I don't know, just an example. I think for me, keeping them longer is better, but I would say at least 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like scanning stuff because it's easier to find. So again, scan it every day or every week. Like, don't let it pile up and become Ben-Hur. Just do it as the job finishes, or
and that's where I think getting the all the tradesmen engaged in those processes is really important. And I think, you know, the businesses that I come across, they've either got some level of job management software implemented, or they're just starting. And then it's, you know, once you sort of got a lot of that stuff happening nicely is when they're usually starting to ask questions about your space, Cal. They're going, oh, look, this software's got this thing on it, it's talking about OHS. Obviously, that's something I'm supposed to be doing. And it's about how it all integrates. And I guess the thing that I'm hearing is that the documents are either, you know, they can be populated by a computer and then uploaded and signed and all that kind of thing.
And even if you're doing, I would say maybe only do this for more lower risk stuff, but if you're doing something and then your job software gives you the opportunity to add a custom box, maybe you could say reviewed blah blah statement that they have to tick off. If you're doing really high risk work, I wouldn't recommend that. I would sign on the swims. But yeah, if it's like, say, cleaning or I don't know, something that's lower risk, you know, you could do it that way if that works. I don't want to blanket recommend that, because that would be something that I would talk to each business about how they do it and whether that could work for them. But yeah, it's just something to think about. I think if maybe in situations where under legislation a swims isn't typically required. So yeah, I like there's specific jobs which is considered high risk under legislation where a swims is required, and then in that instance there's a set of instructions or requirements that the legislation needs to have covered in the swim. So one of that would be that it's signed off, that it has the job address, you know, like there's specific things. If your work doesn't fall into that category, if anyone's not sure, they're welcome to ask me. I can send you a list of what those high risk work under legislation.
Yeah, and I think that one thing I really wanted to make clear to people either on the screen or who are watching this back, there are a lot of businesses out there in this space that are proposing that you can just buy a packet of stuff and implement, like just have that sitting on the shelf. And I guess that's why I've been looking for some time now for an organisation that will do the tailored thing, because it must be tailored. I think that's what people don't understand, is you cannot just buy a packet of swims or a packet of bits and pieces and hope that it will just do the trick, because that doesn't stand up in court. And so that's why Cal's business is great, because it's such a hybrid of that. We've got to give you what you are requiring so that you're safe. Yes. But it's also, there's templated parts of it that are tailored to your business. So I don't know if you want to go into that a bit, Cal. Hello,
yeah,
we've got a little visitor.
This is Mila.
Hi, Mila.
She's in prep, so she's homeschooling at the moment.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So basically, this is what we do to keep our costs down. So obviously you've got other companies, and I see them recommended a lot. And I think there's probably a place for them in terms of, no, not really. But anyway, I'll just leave that. Just leave that alone. So what I do is, we start with a template style, because obviously I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. There's no sense in us charging you for 5 hours to write something that's kind of the same as something we've already written before. So we take that template, but then we work out how do we amend it to suit your specific business. And so we do, so with our manual, it's a fixed price, and then we amend the manual to suit the work that you're doing. But the swims we tend to quote for, because it really depends on how much we have to tailor them, basically. Yeah, but then we do keep our prices down by doing it that way. And we find it to be a really, really good hybrid between, you know, we don't have to charge $10,000 for a setup, but you still get a product that isn't off the shelf. And because I can tell you now, if you had swims that still had instant download company's name on there, they would not be favourable to seeing that, because the point of a swims is that it is for your work, not that it's a custom. So a generic swims is okay, but it has to still be written for your business, if that makes sense. Not just standard.
That's right. And again, like through my process of sort of researching, you know, I've had interactions with the businesses that are charging, not a word of a lie, over $10,000 for all of the stuff. And then so it was about finding you know, something that was affordable but also thorough. And that's why, because I've looked at the instant download you know, businesses and gone, no, I know that's not okay. And so, Cal, that's the great thing about your business, is that it is tailored and it is what the business is required and as per their business, because a plumber is not a Sparky, is not a Chippy, is not a whatever. And so and you know, we've got, say, Belinda's business that's does a certain type of plumbing, which is totally different to, say, Dazzle's drainage that Michelle's got, and then Beck's builder's company, etc., etc. So
that's exactly right.
It's really, yes, you can have a format that gives you a guide, but it's still got to be tailored.
Because, you know, then you've got I mean, people might say, well, we do excavation, but there's so many types of excavation that you could be doing. Or as you say, there's roof plumbing, there's trenching plumbing. Are you doing that? Are you doing both? Is it plumbing? So yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right.
So Michelle's just said here she went looking for a swims but couldn't find any that worked for pipe laying. So that's a really good example.
Yeah.
And you know, there's all sorts of, there's another woman that I've worked with, they do pipe welding, which is different again. And then there's, you know, all different types of intricacies. So they're the sorts of businesses that need that.
And I think even if you could find an instant download for pipe laying, you would have to download it and then go through and amend a lot of it, I would think anyway, to suit exactly what you're doing. So basically we're doing that process for you. No, we're not downloading it. Obviously we're writing it from scratch, but we're doing the process of tell me what you do when you get to site, what actually work are you doing? And then we write that, we work out the risks, we look for the legislation. So we're doing all of that for you. And then what you get should reflect what you're doing on site. So I would then say, you know, go over this and then come back to me if it needs to be changed, because obviously we're not out there with you. In an ideal world, we would come out on site and watch you do the work and then write the swims, but that would be very expensive then, like it's not cost effective. So we sort of would do this back and forth process, and that works really, really well in terms of getting to a finished product that, you know, that is exactly what our client needs. So
love it. And then Bex asked, so she's done some of the work in this space using the HIA docs, with which they've customized with the logo and parts for her business, but not great follow-up. Is that the sort of thing that you can review for people, or how does
that? We can do that. I haven't looked at HIA docs before. So the thing with reviewing people with existing documents, we certainly can, but like what I would normally do is have a quick look at it, and then because we try not to, we don't really charge up front in terms of, like, if you said to us, I've got some existing documents, I'll have a look at it and then I'll work out how long I think it might take to get it up to scratch. So we don't charge like for that part of it, but then if we are sort of updating it, we would have to charge for that. So sometimes it could be 10 hours or more work, which then would end up more expensive than just buying a product, our manual. And that's because we know our manual's compliant. We review it every day and update it all the time. So it's obviously faster and cheaper for us to just start from scratch then. But if someone's got a really, like, a system that they're already using and is really integrated in their business, obviously then it's going to be a better option to retain that. So again,
that's the thing, it's the balance, isn't it, Cal? Because if somebody's got a fair way down the rabbit warren with a product and they might say, I've already invested this much here, so I'm okay to keep investing in getting that up to speed.
Exactly.
Versus the person who says, yeah, I'm a bit down the rabbit warren, but I'm not that emotionally connected. Let me just get your stuff.
Yeah, well, they might have bought it and not done anything with it. In which case it's kind of like, well, how long ago did you buy it? 2 years ago. It's going to be out of date really anyway. So let's just start again. It's every case is going to be different. So basically what we do is we just do whatever our clients need us to do. So there's no, like, we don't sort of go, oh, this is the way we do it. We're really flexible. So it's like you ring us and you tell me your situation and we'll go, okay, these are your options. These are the costs. And then you can sort of go, okay, now I know where I stand and where I can go from here. And then you can make an educated decision as to what might be the best path for your business. I mean, obviously we'll recommend things like, so if someone rang me and they said, look, I've got this system, I've been using it for 2 years, it's really good, but I can't, one thing, you know, so we would then take that system and just add on what they need. I'm not going to tell them to get rid of a completely good system that's working. It's more for people that have, maybe I bought this system 2 years ago, I downloaded it and it's just sat on my computer. I'll be like, well, you've never used it, let's just, you know,
and again, that's the thing that I've really liked about the way you operate, is that it's about what the customer's requiring and
exactly
where they are right now, rather than, you know, some people get very, well, all the people that I interact with, I guess, that I recommend Ladies with Tradies are business owners who are open and willing to fit in with the client, not say this is how we do it, bad luck.
Because at the end of the day, I think when you're rigid, nothing will get done. And my goal at the end of the day is to help people implement this stuff and use it, because I want businesses to realize that it doesn't have to be so scary. I know it's a sucky topic, really, and we all wish it didn't exist, but it does. And so then it's kind of like, well, I can't change the fact that it does, so how can I make it work for me, you know?
Yep.
And I mean, when you've got staff coming in as well, it's good because you've got policies and procedures, and you can say to them when they start, like, okay, this is what we expect of you. You can't be driving and talking on the phone. And people sort of think, well, they should know that they have to follow the law while they're driving. But yes, they should know that. But there's cases like, so KFC, I'll give you this example. KFC has a lot of young workers, and they got a fine for someone standing in a vat of oil when they were cleaning the overhead air sucker thing. That's the technical name. No, anyway, so they had signs saying don't stand on the fryers to clean it. They had training saying don't stand on the fryers to clean it, and they still got fined because the guy wasn't supervised. And so, I mean, KFC is a big business. They have the facilities. That guy was 17. He should be supervised and long enough. So the point is that they didn't have records of him being supervised and then signed off. So induction and training is such a big deal. Like, if you're only going to pick one thing that you feel like, oh, I'm lacking in, and your swims are okay, and you want to go the next thing, do that. Induction and training. Yeah, because that's also where the risk is, I think, like untrained workers.
Yeah.
They are more likely to have an incident, like, you know, someone cutting a piece of wood using their legs as a saw table or whatever, like the stupid things you see. And you might think, oh, that probably doesn't happen, but I'm in a group of workplace accidents, and it's really gory, so don't share any of the stuff, but the stuff that happens, it just boggles your mind. And when I see it, it like really spurs me on to go, you know, like, people, they lose their limbs, they lose their fingers, they whatever. Yeah. I just watched a video yesterday of a guy who was grinding, and I'm going to put this on my page. He didn't have any PPE on, he didn't have a guard on the grinder. The grinding disc hit him in the shoulder and then the neck. He had a scratch on his neck, and I was like, dude, like, you should have died like that. You are so lucky, you know. Anyway, and it just I don't know, it doesn't make me excited that it happened, but it really gives you that purpose of,
we've got things done.
Yeah, has he been trained not to take that grinder disc off? You know, like, so then that company would actually be responsible, even though he's the silly one grinding without the guard. He was 17. Yeah. So anyway, I've completely gone off topic.
No, and this is what we want to see: somebody who's excited about something, like about what they do, because that passion and commitment to keeping people safe and getting them engaged in this process, that's what this is all about, and bringing you to them, because you know, it is that thing, and everybody, they know, but it's then that next step of putting it in, getting it done, and continuing to do it, that's so important. So I don't know if there's any last minute questions from anybody. Feel free to either wave at us or take yourself off mute if you've got a question. Don't know that, I think everybody's okay. Yeah. So that's been fantastic, Cal. So what we'll do is, what's the best way for people to contact you? Is it via email or?
So email, they can email, which is
at.
Yep.
Is it the hello one?
Yep, that's fine.
Hello.
I have got myself all in a tiz because I made 2 and now I have to check 2 anyway. So
hello at OHS Compliance
Solutions.com.au.
Yeah. So I'll just put that in the chat. So hello at OHS Compliance.com.au. Yep.
1800 430 782. And that will either come to myself or Alison. So there's 2 of us. She's been in safety for 10 years as well. And I've worked with her. We've worked together for 8 years. So
Yeah, great.
she's awesome. Also qualified, also can help you with the questions. The other thing I wanted to add is that we don't actually charge if you ring up and want to talk to us or ask our advice or ask a question or ask her what should I do in this scenario. You can ring or email us. We don't charge for that. So we don't have like, we charge for documentation, but our clients, and even, you know, if you're not our client yet, that's fine, we'll help you. We just want to help people basically. So yeah, if you ever do have a scenario, feel free to just get in touch and ask the question rather than
Amazing.
guessing. Even if you don't know where to find something, a big thing that I've seen is that people aren't sure where to find the information that they need, like what they need to do, because obviously the government websites are challenging to navigate sometimes, or the legislation can be difficult to read. We can help you, point you in the right direction. Yeah, anything like that. So
Amazing. Thank you so much, Cal. That's been
yeah.
absolutely brilliant. It's really informative. I think the biggest thing that I felt after I spoke to you was relief. I felt a bit like,
That's my goal.
It doesn't seem so bad after all. And so, Belle, did you have a question? I just saw you wave your little hand. No, all good. She's sorting something. That's all good. So please do reach out to Cal if you want to come through me. That's okay as well. And I can connect you. And Bex just said thanks very much. Super helpful.
Oh, you're welcome.
And yeah, please reach out to Callie. And have a great day, everybody. Thanks for jumping on. And all the best with your OH&S.